Welcome in, everybody. This is the Two-Way Tonight program. I'm Mark Halperin, your guide to hilarity. Thank you for being here. Big news day across the board. Could lead with any of a number of things. I'm not a great storyteller, but I'm competent. I'm considered the Burl Ives of the Upper West Side. And here's how I think about storytelling. I always think about who's your protagonist, who's your villain, and then you ask three questions about the protagonist. What challenge do they face? How do they feel about it? And then what do they do about it? And it's the second one that's so important. How do they feel about it? Because that's where you get the humanity. Part of what we do here is we tell stories about people, real people engaged in political and governmental combat. But behind all that, of course, is the real ideas, the real lives of real people, what affects policy, what affects what actually happens in the world. But some nights you just surrender to the narrative. And so tonight's episode, we didn't advertise this in advance, primarily because I thought of it at 5:58. It's going to be A versus B, a number of A's versus B's. High human drama of two people in conflict, and how they're going to settle it, and then particularly in each case the protagonist. How's the protagonist going to? What's the problem they face? How do they feel about it? What are they going to do about it? And of course, in our modern age, you can't always tell who the protagonist is. Luckily, tonight we have with us someone extremely well versed in identifying protagoni. Our guest, Katy Balls, Washington editor of the Times of London. Those Brits, they're all about heroes and villains, spy versus spy, good versus evil, Churchill versus Hitler, Oasis versus Blur. They just constantly are thinking, who's the hero, who's the villain? So tonight, in just a bit, Katy and I will be walking through all sorts of pairs of antagonists. And Katy will tell us the story because she's a Dickensian in her storytelling abilities. And before too long, we'll get to your questions. So if you're here on the platform and you want to get in the conversation, maybe weigh in on some of our heroes versus villain pairs, please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or perhaps you're watching on YouTube, we have just a few rules. Enjoy yourself. Feel free to take your shoes off. Don't put smack in the chat. Peace, love, and understanding extended to all. Presumption of grace extended to all. And if you're having trouble following what I say, it's not your speakers or your headphones. It's my thick Maryland accent. All right. Enough of the housekeeping. Let's begin by bringing in Katy Balls. Katy, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Was this your first Thanksgiving, Katy?
It was my first Thanksgiving.
What'd you think of the sides?
I thought they were good. I still can't get my head around the marshmallows on potatoes.
Yeah, you don't have that at all?
No. And I would say this is perhaps a niche point,
Yeah.
but obviously our closest thing is a Christmas roast.
Yeah.
I would say Thanksgiving is a softer, textured meal.
Yeah. Softer, like literally softer textured or
Yeah, like mash,
oh,
very,
yeah.
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 Did you eat turkey?
I did eat
Yeah.
turkey. I
Did,
actually ate turkey twice. I did
yeah.
two Thanksgivings in one day.
And do you ever eat turkey in the UK? Is that something people eat?
On Christmas Day, but that's about
Christmas.
it. Whereas
Yeah.
here you seem to all be into turkey burgers. And I see turkey more on the menu here.
Yeah. Lastly, was there meat in your stuffing?
Yes, there was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that? Like some sausage?
Yeah, that had similarities. I'm
Yeah.
already now need to be careful because I feel
Yeah.
like British food doesn't have the I don't think there's the best impression of British food by Americans. So I
Yeah.
don't want to look like, too critical. I was obviously very grateful to be taken in by not one but two American
Yeah.
households.
Yeah. It's very nice. Of course, London now has decent food. It's not like the olden days, and you really get the best falafel and hummus anywhere in Europe in London. I think it's my point of view.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Katy. I want to first start with a little game. This is modern youth slang from the UK. Okay, I'll give you a word. You either define it or use it in a sentence. Okay, here we go.
We'll
Pang,
cry.
pang, Peng, pang. You ever heard that one?
Hey.
Peng. Yeah, it's used by
I think, oh God,
kids
this is
in
going to be
kids
so
in
embarrassing,
London, Manchester,
but
Birmingham, Gen
I think
Z.
it's positive. I think it makes if someone's paying, I think it's
You,
like a good thing.
one for one. That's right. That new cafe is paying. Okay, bear, bear, Bare. How are the kids using that
That
today?
that's bear, mate. I don't know. I'm gonna guess that one.
It means a lot, very really. It's bare cold outside.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. A wasteman. What's a wasteman or wasteman behavior?
Wasteman.
Yeah.
Is it being like badly behaved?
There you go, Katie.
Yeah.
You might as well be a British teen. Thank you for being
I'll
here.
just be a rapper.
Yeah, so we're going to run through the news, and here's who our verses here is going to be. Pete Hegseth versus Capitol Hill on two fronts. New questions being raised about his role in the Caribbean strike, but also the report from the Pentagon watchdog came out saying he violated protocol in the signal gate affair. We'll talk about that. Then you got the president versus Minnesota and Somali immigrants. You got Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. You got Scott Bessent versus the New York Times. You got Gavin Newsom versus Donald Trump. You got Mike Johnson versus uh, what's her name? Elise Stefanik. And then what the one I think Katie might like the best, Josh Shapiro versus Kamala Harris. You know that one?
Yeah.
That one's cackling. What's the word? Crackling? What is that? What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, we're going to run through them all with Katie. And again, if you want to be on the conversation, please raise your hand. A quick word from our first sponsor and then right to it. And that's Cozy Earth, 40% off. Amazing. 40% off the softest towels, sheets, pants, and towels you ever did own. Go to cozyearth.com, use the promo code two-way for a full 40% off. If you order before December 12th, guaranteed for Christmas delivery. And if you get to the post-purchase survey, please say you heard about Cozy Earth here. Bamboo sheets, bubble cuddle blanket, 40% off. The jogger pants, you'd think, well, those couldn't be, 40% off. Even the t-shirts, which are the softest, nicest t-shirts you'll ever own, all 40% off. Order again by December 12th. Get it before Christmas. Go to cozyearth.com. Use the promo code two-way. Give the gift of everyday luxury this holiday season. So buy the pants for yourself. Buy them for someone you love. And if you buy the pants for someone else, I'll expect a nice tweet or text on Christmas saying, Mark, you're like my secret Santa. Thank you for your help. All right, here we go. Katie, let's talk about Pete Hegseth. Here's the headline from the Washington Post. The Pentagon watchdog long ago was assigned the task of saying, what did Pete Hegseth violate, if anything, with the Signalgate matter? Remember, he's appeared to put classified material onto the Signal group text chain with people who were not authorized to see classified material. Do we have number 4, please? And the report leaked out this afternoon. It's going to Capitol Hill. And Inspector General, maybe some good news, bad news for Pete Hegseth. Bad news, the report says that he violated, he was not supposed, he put classified material on the Signal chat in a way that could have endangered the mission and American forces. But the watchdog also said that he had the right to do it. And the president was asked in a long photo op in the Oval Office today about the question of whether anything would be released that hadn't been released pertaining to the boat strikes. The three main things we haven't seen yet are the video, if any, of the second strike. Second would be the lawyers' documents, and then any other materials that speak to the TikTok leading up to the second strike. The Associated Press reported just a little while ago that the second strike, officials say, was meant to target the ship, not the two men who survived the first attack and the first strike, and that's consistent with what the secretary had said. So, Katie, who's going to win out in Pete Hegseth versus the machine, versus Capitol Hill, and versus his critics?
Well, I think you can have a situation where the critics are all increasingly annoyed, but the White House still kind of wraps his arms around. And I think on the 2 points, on the Signal chat, it feels a bit as though he's in trouble for using Signal, but it all comes down to whether it's classified or not, right? And his the defense appears to be it wasn't classified. We don't know exactly when that didn't happen, or when it was made. And then I think when it comes to the second strike, I feel throughout this week we've seen a situation where it looks a bit as though Hegseth and also the White House are, coming together And actually, it's Admiral Mitch Bradley who's the one facing all these questions. And while they keep saying almost with a smile or an effusive tweets that, they back Bradley and all these things, every kind of extra sentence means more questions going to Bradley rather than Hegseth.
It's interesting. Bradley will be on Capitol Hill tomorrow. And, it's one of the oldest rules in politics that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton and other people are well aware of is if you wait, if you stall things, something that could kill you months later won't. If it had come out in the heat of the moment that Hegseth had put classified information carelessly on Signal that had jeopardized, threatened the lives and the mission, I think he would have been a goner if that had happened back then. But of course, things have cooled down, and now most people I talk to believe he will survive it. Okay, let's jump to another one that's also broke relatively late today, and this is Turning Point USA, Team Turning Point USA versus Candace Owen. You've been following this one, Katie? So Candace Owens worked at Turning Point. She was very good friends with Charlie Kirk. They were friendly. They were friends. They were close. But since Charlie Kirk's death, and part of why I'm putting this one up high is this is a crazy thing, at least in my conception of time. Charlie Kirk hasn't been dead for 3 months. It's next week will be 3 months. It seems like a million years ago. But in any event, since he died, Candace Owen has engaged in her normal saucery of conspiracy theories. And today, I believe only once before, Charlie Kirk's team has responded to her. But today they decided that was it. They had to respond at great length. So about a 7-minute performance by Blake Neff, right? Blake Neff, that's his name? On Charlie's radio show today. He's one of the advisors who host the show. He ran through 35 just bat crap crazy stuff that Candace has said in accusing people around Charlie of being involved with his murder, doing the murder, knowing about it. It's all crazy stuff. And they said, Blake said, Charlie would have wanted us to wait and hope Candace came to her senses, but she hasn't. And so after chronicling all of her accusations, and again, these are so far out there, which is what she does. If you've never listened to Candace's extremely popular show, I recommend you listen to at least one, because every episode's filled with just crackpot conspiracy theories. But after listing them all and denying them all in effect, although some of them they didn't deny, they just read them and I think just assumed people would know they were denying them. Blake announced that they're going to, at great detail, because they're asked every day about this, are these things true, even though they're outlandish and obviously false? So today they announced a new plan to not ignore Candace, but to address her head on. Here's Blake's announcement.
In the near future, there will be a live stream here in Phoenix where we address in a clear and comprehensive way the claims and accusations, the false accusations that have been made against Charlie's family, friends, and the people here at Turning Point. We plan to walk through everything carefully and thoroughly. If Candace is available, we would sincerely welcome her participation in that live stream at our studio here in Phoenix. At this point, we believe the ball is back in her court. Our motivation for doing this is not out of any obligation to Candace. It is about honoring Charlie. We feel a deep responsibility to protect his legacy, his work, and the truth. I feel that. I owe Charlie everything in my life. I feel it immensely. And that is why we feel compelled to speak clearly and openly now. We'll have more on this in the near future.
I'll pay for Candace's flight if that's the issue, because I would love her to be there. She responded a little while ago. Here's Candace Owen responding to the invitation.
Went for it. And guess what? Turning Point has moved to formally respond to all the things that we have said. And after a very long diatribe in which they wildly misrepresent the public and global investigation of Charlie Kirk's assassination, they at long last issued a public invitation or a challenge. I'm not sure what it is, but I accept. Okay? Quite literally, all we have ever asked.
Oh, don't know what that is. All right, so it looks like this is going to happen. Maybe. First of all, Katie, is Candace Owen, does she have a following in the UK?
She does. She is married, I believe, to a British man.
Yeah. Do you blame us for that?
No, I just, it's another UK-US special
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah,
Um, but as a result, she has quite a profile. And there was a point when Turning Point UK, I remember quite a few years ago when I was working in Westminster, there was an attempt to build up a similar kind of youth movement to the right in the UK. And it didn't take off nearly to the same degree, obviously, as Charlie Kirk did with
yeah,
his organization. But therefore, there is an awareness, and I think lots of people associate her with Kanye West in the UK. She definitely, these people with big online followings. This is the point: is you don't need to be on a conventional platform
yeah,
these days, broadcast. And actually, if you go and speak to students, they tend to know people like Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes,
yeah,
Charlie Kirk more than they do lots of the people that are on terrestrial TV.
yeah. Do you have people like Candace Owens in the UK who are podcasters with massive followings who just live off of conspiracy theories? You got that as well?
We definitely have some conspiracy theorists, but I think they're a bit less successful. It might
Yeah.
just be that we're a smaller country. I mean, we have Russell Brand, but you've slightly
Oh,
taken
oh
him
yeah.
from
Oh yeah.
us.
We've borrowed him. We've
Yeah,
borrowed.
and he now goes to Turning Point events. When
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
at the one in July, he was there,
yeah,
talking about, all those things. So I would say his audience is maybe more American now.
yeah. So again, if you're going to Ladbrokes putting down a fiver, are you putting it down on Candace for this face-off or the folks at Turning Point?
Well, I'm putting it on the folks at Turning Point, but I think Candace is going to gain from this too, right? Because you can see both sides getting huge viewing figures. I also think once someone's decided there's a conspiracy, it's really hard to put a lid on that. And it will be, I think perhaps both organizations are going to find that they get more interest after this has happened, even
Right.
though they're going for different things.
Right. All right. Just to be clear tonight, I'm doing the fun ones, and I shouldn't say fun. I'm doing the compelling ones, the ones that are rich narrative. I'm not necessarily going in order from what's most important. So third, we got to go to Governor Shapiro versus Vice President Harris. I reported at the time of the Veep stakes process that the reason that Governor Shapiro was not picked was largely because of the very tense meeting that they had, where Kamala Harris was under a lot of time pressure to make the choice, and when Governor Shapiro came in, he asked questions like, "Will I get to pick my vice presidential staff? Will I get to pick my if we win? Will I get to pick who runs my campaign for the next couple months? What will my role be?" These are very typical questions. Al Gore asked them of Bill Clinton. They get asked, and Governor Shapiro is no dummy, and he knew the questions to ask. He did some consultations before the meeting. What are the questions I should ask? But Kamala Harris's view was this isn't a normal process. I've had a week to pick my running mate. I gotta get moving here, buddy. So there's no time for me to even answer these questions, let alone give you like detailed back and forth. And that was the main reason because whereas he came in and asked a bunch of questions, then Governor Walz came in and he's like, I'm here to help. Let me know what you need me to do. I'm happy to do it. And so for her, it was an easy choice. The guy asking no questions versus the guy who made it clear he wasn't really going to take it unless she answered she answered a lot of the questions. Now, that's not the only reason she didn't pick him, but my reporting at the time said that. Say what you will about Kamala Harris's book, to my reporting, she's very accurate on a lot of things that had never been reported very widely before. And on this one, her account, I believe, is pretty accurate. She recounts the tension between them as he asks questions. So when the book first came out, Governor Shapiro's spokesperson said, she kind of deflected, said, well, the governor's main focus was, sole focus was on beating Donald Trump. So today or yesterday, Governor Shapiro doing an interview with The Atlantic. This is number 15, please. And got asked by the reporter about what she wrote in the book about him. And he kind of lost it. Temper flared. He tried to reel it back a little bit. But here's what the account from the Washington Post of the Atlantic interview with Tim Alberta, who's you know him, Katie? You should meet him if you don't know him. He's a very good reporter. Harris also wrote in her memoir that before Shapiro's interview, the Pennsylvania governor asked her residence manager how many bedrooms were in the vice presidential residence and wondered aloud about whether the Smithsonian might work with him to loan Pennsylvania art for the house. This particular detail seemed to provoke the most incredulous and defensive response from Shapiro, according to Tim Alberta, who did the interview. Quote, "That's complete and utter bullshit," Shapiro told The Atlantic. "I can tell you that her accounts are just blatant lies." Do we have the next part of the quote? I don't know if we have the next part of the quote. He said
No, we
she was,
don't.
all right, he said she was trying to cover her ass, and then he took that back. He said, well, she wasn't trying to cover her ass. Anyway, Katie, what do you make of this? These are obviously two people who may run against each other for president, but why do you think Governor Shapiro is so exercised all of a sudden about this?
Well, as you say, clearly the specific bits he's saying just aren't true. And I think obviously this idea that you're working out how to put the paintings up in the place when you haven't even won has it has a sense
Well,
of
haven't even been selected.
Exactly right. So I can see why that, if it isn't the case, would irritate someone because it makes you look complacent on many levels. But the broader thing is ultimately they do seem to vaguely agree on the same points, which is he was asking a bunch of questions and she was saying, why are you asking those questions? I think that if you look back at the campaign, and you'll know more on this than me, but you can argue she made the wrong choice on VP, and perhaps she did need to have some of these more difficult conversations.
Yeah.
Whereas Harrington was, I was reading, for example, the 2024 election book, which came out, and they recount, one episode in that where, they're in a swing state, they're in Shapiro state, and they're trying to work out a place to have an event with the vice president, and this farming couple say Shapiro can come, but it's not Shapiro, and they don't want Walz there, and therefore you obviously, and you see this in the UK a little bit less so because we don't have a VP, but often with the chance that you're trying to balance out the personalities and what you're aiming at. And I do just feel like perhaps it's reflective of Kamala Harris's whole campaign, where she was playing a bit more to what she's most comfortable with, and to her base.
Yeah, interesting. Well, and so who do you think's coming out top on this Harris versus Shapiro contretemps?
I think it depends how many books Kamala Harris gets to sell as a result of doing it.
Yeah, well, she sold a lot of books. I have to say, I'm hoping there's audio or video because I'd like to see just how much steam was coming out of that guy's head. He's a secret hothead. That's what I've been told. Secret hothead. And so this was, I think, revealing beyond what he normally shows in public. All right, a few more. We'll get to your questions before too long. If you're on the platform, raise your hand. Scott Bessent agreed to speak at the New York Times Deal Book Summit. I think it was out in California, and interviewed by Andrew Ross Sorkin. If you're the host of a morning show on a business news network, or you're an assassin, you got three names: Andrew Ross Sorkin. And Andrew was asking him about Donald Trump. The recent report in the New York Times said Donald Trump was slowing down. His schedule was lighter. It really offended people in the White House. And then, of course, the president fell asleep at his cabinet meeting yesterday. So Andrew was asking Scott Bessent about all of this. And one of the reasons the president likes Scott Bessent is he is like J.D. Vance and Caroline Leavitt. He is ferocious going after the media, just ferocious. His Bruce Banner to the Hulk transition is aroused by nothing more than when you bring up something he thinks reflects liberal media bias. So watch sometimes mild-mannered Scott Bessent react to Andrew asking him about the New York Times coverage of President Trump. This is number 9, please.
You had what was one of the greatest scandals of all time, that the coverage of the Biden administration, Joe Biden's diminished capacity, and the cover-up.
And that's why it's probably fair to raise these questions.
Where was the New York Times? We just had a 3-hour cabinet meeting yesterday, Andrew. For 10 months, the Biden administration did not have a cabinet meeting. How are you going to invoke the 25th Amendment if the cabinet secretaries never see the president, which they didn't? That, I hear from people in the Treasury building that I see President Trump more in a day than my predecessor saw Joe Biden in half a year. So,
Katie, you find that guy a bit intimidating? Like if you were interviewing him, and he did that, I find that kind of intense. Who's getting the best of that Andrew Ross Sorkin Scott Bessent exchange for you?
Yeah, I also quite enjoyed doing it, with the New York Times logo in the pictures all over behind you.
Yeah.
Look, I think Scott Bessent's doing what he likes to do, which is to come out swinging. I mean, the question is, is the story true or not? Obviously, we then had these logs come out this week where, leaked, I think, to the New York Post, which was showing actually he's working so hard and we've got the secret documents to prove it. So, I mean, the thing is, you can have a situation where Donald Trump is nowhere near the state of Joe Biden, and it's still a valid story to write about. But
Yeah.
I think Scott Bassett will have made his master happy with that appearance.
Yeah. Do you get a sense that the press is thinking through its performance in the wake of the Biden controversy, which again I've called the biggest media scandal in American history? Do you get the sense the press is covering this administration differently and a little bit back on its heels, or reflective of its failures in recent past, or no?
I think to a degree, I come have a bit of an outside perspective on it because when I moved here, I think the week after I moved here, I went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and there was no comedian, there was no president, but what you did have were journalists giving speeches, and one was from Alex Thompson, who went up on stage and said, "We all need to be embarrassed and take a minute to think about our failures on covering Biden." And certainly, it feels to me some of the coverage of Trump's second term is less shrill than Trump's first term, but in terms of are they treating them quite the same fairly? I'm not sure. I think that the press corps seem a bit more sober in some of their reporting than previous, and are trying to check themselves a bit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here's another. The president versus Somali Americans. I have to say, this is like the third or fourth day in a row the president has used really harsh language about Somali Americans, and I feel for young people. I'm not saying I'm not concerned about the grown-ups. But if you're a young teenager, and your ancestors are from Somalia, but you were born in this country, and then to have the president of the United States use the language he's used about the community, I find that just kind of mind-boggling. And if I were the parent of such a child, I'm not sure how I'd explain it. Here's the president, third or fourth day in a row, pretty harsh language about people from Somalia originally. Our family comes from Somalia. Number 5, please.
Mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, is saying that he's actually proud to have the largest Somali community in the country, and his police chief.
Well, then he's a fool.
Well, his police chief is also saying
I wouldn't be
that
proud to have the largest Somalian. Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. Look, these Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar, who they say married her brother. It's a fraud. She tries to deny it now, but you can't really deny it because, it just happened. She shouldn't be allowed to be a congresswoman, and I'm sure people are looking at that. And she should be thrown the hell out of our country. And most of those people, they have destroyed Minnesota, okay? Minnesota, you have an incompetent governor. You have a crooked governor. He's crooked as hell, but he's incompetent. Walz he should be ashamed. That beautiful land, that beautiful state, it's a hellhole right now. And the Somalians should be out of here. They've destroyed our country. And all they do is complain, complain, complain. You have her. She's always talking about the Constitution provides me with, go back to your own country and figure out your Constitution. All she does is complain about this country. Without this country, she would not be in very good shape. She probably wouldn't be alive right now. So Somalia is considered by many to be the worst country on earth. I don't know. I haven't been there. I won't be there anytime soon, I hope. But what Somalia, what the Somalian people have done to Minnesota is not even believable. It's not even believable. And a lot of it starts with the governor. A lot of it starts with Barack Hussein Obama, because that's when people started coming in. And you have to have people come in that are going to love our country, cherish our country. They want to kiss our country goodnight. They talk about our country. We want them to pray for our country. This is not the people living in Minnesota. And she's a disaster. She should not be, and her friends shouldn't be allowed. Frankly, they shouldn't even be allowed to be congresspeople, okay? They shouldn't even be allowed to be congresspeople because they don't represent the interests of our country.
So, Katie, I don't know why I'm so struck in this case because the president says things like this on a regular basis, but for some reason, I just can't help but thinking about how young people of Somali descent in Minnesota would feel about this. It just seems pretty harsh. I'm just wondering if you, as a student of Donald Trump, have any guess even about why he's saying these things? Is it political? Is he outraged on the merits? Why is he so exercised about Somali Americans?
Yeah, he's also spoken about Somalia long before this. So I think
Yeah,
it was like 2 months ago when he was talking about the Democratic Party, and he
yeah,
kept saying they're like Somalia.
yeah,
So it's his go-to insult, right?
yeah,
And his point being, there's no leader. It's all these tribes and gangs. That's what he was trying to say. They were leaderless. But I think it's interesting that in his lexicon of if I want to have an insult, Somalia is top of the list. He obviously
yeah,
has a fixation. I think that the Congresswoman is clearly a big reason he's decided to write off an entire population. And then you add to that the sense that this story, I mean, the story about Minnesota and the fraud is a shocking story. But I think it is fitting a narrative that Donald Trump already has about that country, and now he's going for it. And perhaps he thinks it's, getting on the front foot on immigration and pushing on that is a good thing to do when he's, facing pressure elsewhere from his party. Maybe he thinks it's a red meat approach. But yeah, I think he's had long held views.
yeah. I wrote about the fraud story earlier this week, and it's a massive story, and those guilty should be held accountable. Maybe this is not the right metaphor. Maybe it is. If a bunch of Irish mobsters had done something, 100 Irish mobsters had defrauded the government, would the president say all Irish people should leave? Irish people are ruining the country. I don't think he would. It just seems even for a man who speaks harshly on a regular basis, there's just something about it that seems extremely harsh. All right, here's the president with another round of harshness. This towards Joe Biden, and his another fixation of his is the auto pen. We all know the president has done various things, serious and humorous, to raise the question of whether the use of the auto pen by the Biden administration was done in a way that was legally binding, which is to say that President Biden authorized certain decisions that were then done through auto pen. Here's President Trump once again on that theme. Number 8, please.
And operating the auto pen, and I'm sure there are more than one, because I think some of the people can operate it themselves. Some of the high-level people operate it themselves. They would just go in and sign his name with an auto pen onto very important documents, not only pardons, but policy, maybe cafe standards, okay, as an example. Who signed cafe? If you ask Biden what's a cafe standard, he would have absolutely no idea. He'd say, where is the cafe located? The guy didn't know anything.
All right, what he's referring to is the purpose of the signing ceremony he did today was he signed an executive order in the Oval Office terminating the cafe standards that were in line to take place that Joe Biden had put in place, lowered the standards, so it will be easier for people to keep driving cars that use gasoline. That's called petrol, right? Got that right? By the leader. Here's the president talking about the cafe standards that he's terminating. He terminated earlier today. Number 10, please.
Today, my administration has taken historic action to lower costs for American consumers, protect American auto jobs, and make buying a car much more affordable for countless American families and also safer. We're officially terminating Joe Biden's ridiculously burdensome, horrible, actually, cafe standards that imposed expensive restrictions and all sorts of problems, gave all sorts of problems to automakers. And we're not only talking about here, we're talking about outside of our country, because nobody could do it. Nobody wanted to do it, and it was ridiculous, very expensive. It put tremendous upward pressure on car prices, combined with the insane electric vehicle mandate. Biden's burdensome regulations helped cause the price of cars to soar more than 25%, and in one case, they went up 18% in 1 year. Today, we're taking one more step to kill the Green New scam. It's part of the greatest scam, probably, well, other than Russia, and a few others I could name. The greatest scam in American history, the Green New scam, and it's a quest to end the gasoline-powered car. This is what they wanted to do, even though we have more gasoline than any other country by far. And people want the gasoline car. They want everything. They want electric. They want to have lots of alternatives, but they do want the gasoline car. Right now, it's leading away by a lot. The car business is a very interesting business, but we want to keep it that way.
So this is not Biden versus Trump. This is Newsom versus Trump, because after the president's announcement, the governor of California, who we haven't seen maybe over the holidays, maybe he was down with his family, but here he is back critical of the president's decision on cafe standards.
Understands the opportunity. It's about markets, it's about supply chains, and it's about influence. They're doing it in Latin America, South America, increasingly in Europe. And we are doubling down on stupid here in the United States. 70% of the EV market is coming out of China now. They're 3x the manufacturing of automobiles that we are in the United States of America, about 31 plus million vehicles to our 10. And it's the tech stack where they're dominating. It's batteries, it's software, it's the future, it's mobility. And so, yeah, I'm a little ticked off that these guys want to pave over the old cow path as opposed to transform the industry and the technology and lower costs for consumers and not have the socialized cost of pollution and lousy health as a byproduct of it.
So whoever booked the Deal Book Summit seems to have done a very good job. They got Governor of California, Treasury Secretary. Katy, the environment. Democrats have long waited for that to become a big issue for in their favor. And things like fracking have turned the tables just a bit. Do you get the sense that the green movement, whether it's in the Europe context or here, that the green movement is poised to be a powerful force, or not during these economic times?
I think it just comes down to cost, right? You can always argue a poll either way. So you always get these polls where, particularly in the UK, we've seen them where, environment is the top 3 voter issue. But then if you ask the same group, do you feel that you should have to pay this much to replace your boiler or to move your car? Then they start to say, no, actually not that bit. So everyone, I think most people tend to like the idea of being more environmental and nice to the planet. It's just when they get the bill, they might start to think twice. And we definitely have a problem in Europe with some of these electric car targets where they're still, some countries have delayed, Germany and others, but in the UK we have Ed Miliband, who's still a true believer, and who I don't think the administration here are huge fans of. And there is a question as to whether it's going to be ready on time, whether you're actually going to have all the charging points, and do you get almost a gilet jaune, as you saw in Paris, kind of fight back. So I think that it is potentially risky for those who champion green causes if the sums don't add up.
Yeah. Well said. All right, quick sponsors, and then to your questions. If you're here on the platform, you've got a question for Katy or comment you want to make, please raise your hand. We'll get to you in just a moment on the topic of your choice. And here we go. Another big sale here, Black Friday-ish discount, 30% off everything at Brickhouse Nutrition. Want to get healthier? They offer a variety of products that will allow you to lose weight and feel healthier with natural products developed by doctors. Go to brickhousesale.com. Use the promo code. Oh, no promo code. Just brickhousesale.com. It'll take you directly to the sale website. 30% off all their products. That includes the products from Lean, doctor-formulated weight loss products that are natural and allow you to lose weight the healthy way, not yo-yo dieting up and down, but just a consistent way to do it without injections. Some people don't like when I emphasize this without injections. I just say if you can lose weight without the injections and all the impacts of the injections, for many people, that's a good thing. Doctor-formulated lean products, 30% off, as are the products of Creatone, designed for women to look better, feel better, stay in shape without excessive, pardon me. Also 30% off Field of Greens, a superfruit and vegetable drink that allows you to feel better as well. Promises better health results that even your doctor, maybe especially your doctor, will notice. Right now, Brickhouse products, 30% off. Go to brickhousesale.com to save 30% off. All right. Let's go to Sue. Sue, welcome in. Katy, have you had a chance to go to Colorado since you've been here in the States? Been there yet?
I went to Tampa.
Tampa, Florida. Okay, that's close. That's close.
The closest.
Yeah, well, Sue used to live in North Carolina, which is near Florida, but now she lives in Colorado, and she's a two-way veteran, and she's got a snowy first week of December.
Yes.
Sue, welcome in. Thanks for being part of Two Way as always. What's on your mind?
Well, I have a comment and a question, if I can. You
Yes,
asked
ma'am.
about Somalia and how that might affect, young people. I have somewhat experience, not with Somalia, but my daughter is adopted. She's from China. And during Trump's first term, when he was saying China is raping us, and then certainly during COVID, during the time Trump was running and saying, China is raping us, my daughter, and send them back to where they came from. My daughter was 15. She comes down to the dinner table and she's crying. We talk about politics, around the house at the time. And she says, Mom, is Trump going to send me back to China? Because I don't know anybody in China. I don't speak Chinese. What am I going to do if he sends me back to China? And I promised her Trump will never be elected. But obviously that wasn't the case. But this has affected her for years, because if he targets a country like that, people pick up on that. And she has had the most horrendous things said to her. She will be walking down the street in Boulder, Colorado, and 3 dudes walk past her. And I got to tell you, my daughter is gorgeous. 3 dudes walk past her and go, ooh, an Asian. I mean, what he says has an impact on people, and he doesn't take that into consideration, I guess. I'm baffled by that. Absolutely baffled. I think it's really dangerous because of what other people will do. All this talk about lowering the rhetoric, this is a perfect example of something that the president of the United States should not do.
Yeah.
And he keeps doing it.
Sue, before you ask your question, I'll just say I don't read the chat, but I glance at it. For those of you who say, "Oh, come on, that never happened," or "That wouldn't happen in Boulder, Colorado," you please understand that you could think Sue's a fabulist and a liar. Trust me, that happens in all 50 states, and it is worse when it's empowered by our top politicians who give permission structure to say horrendous things. Unfortunately, I won't say only young men, but including young men will say horrible things to other people, and it's beneath us as a nation. Sue, I'm sorry she's had to go through that.
During COVID, she was 17. She went to the grocery store for me, mask mandate, and it was the spring of 2020. A woman in a MAGA hat without a mask chased her around the grocery store, yelling at her that COVID is her fault. Go back to the country she came from. She's been here since she was 15 months old. This is her country.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. Very sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. My question is basically, again, another thing that absolutely baffles me, that I don't understand why the Trump administration hasn't learned the lesson of Biden. Why is the president going on speaking out twice, yesterday and today, twice, so it's not a slip up, that affordability is a hoax? It's not. These are clips which, if Democrats aren't cutting and pasting these into ads right now, they're stupider than they seem to be. There are, I can name 5 things that I regularly buy at the grocery store that are more expensive than when Biden was president, by a lot. Things that I go to the grocery store and I'm like, and this is just not meat and chicken and beef or whatever, that I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to buy it. It's not a hoax. It's like them telling people the mistake that Biden made, that, oh, what you're feeling isn't really true. And it baffles me. Have they not learned that lesson? I mean, it seems stupid to me that they would actually have the president out there saying affordability, oh, it's all in your mind, because it's not.
Yeah. Katy, how does a politician sound so out of touch in a case like this?
Yeah. Well, first off, sorry to hear about your daughter. And it made me think to one of my old colleagues who's Chinese and moved to the UK. And during the pandemic in the UK, faced quite a lot of abuse from, just drunken people around that time. So, I mean, not saying it's, just all one leader, but there was definitely, it creates that environment where people just thought it was acceptable to go up and insult someone because they're Chinese. Which I think has improved a bit there at least. But I think on the affordability, to your point, I really agree. I find it bizarre that Joe Biden obviously had this problem where they would talk about the economy improving, but lots of people didn't feel it. And that was something the Republicans seemed to really successfully tap into. And then you have a situation where Donald Trump almost is, he keeps saying the word affordability. I won't try and do my Trump impression today, but almost in a mimicking, sending it up way, while at the same time also trying to do a bunch of things to show he's tackling it. So I feel it feels quite confused from him because they're clearly worried about cost of living, but they've almost decided the specific word affordability is a Democrat hoax, but cost of living is an issue. And it just isn't playing right. The word isn't the issue. The issue is obviously the fact that people just feel really, stuck. And I was speaking to some Republicans today, and they were making the point that they're fine with things like the ballroom potentially at the White House or, the Great Gatsby parties, but they worry when everyone feels as though they don't have much money in their pockets, so the optics are going to start to look pretty bad for them.
Yeah. Sue, thank you. Grateful to you. And again, we all feel just heart sick about you're having to deal with
And
that.
I'm not lying.
No, of course you're not. Thank you, Sue. Grateful to you. All right, another quick word from another sponsor, and then back to your questions. Again, please raise your hand if you want in on the conversation. Another 30% off sale available to two-way community members with the promo code two-way. This is from ChefIQ.com. Chef IQ sends the wireless cooking thermometer that takes all of the guesswork out of cooking. And if you don't have this, you'll be doing a lot of guessing. Right now, 30% off their Black Friday sale. It's easy to use. Just pop the sensor in. Tell the app what you're cooking, be it turkey, the beloved turkey that Katy Balls now eats annually, chicken, prime rib, whatever you're making. Chef IQ does the rest, tells you when to turn it over, take it out, even how long to let it rest after it cooks. The food comes cooked perfectly every time. Great gift for someone in your family who loves to cook or maybe needs to learn to cook better. Smart, useful, and makes cooking fun again, whether you're a grill king or just a newbie. Get all your shopping done right now for all the cooks on your list. Go to chefiq.com. Use the promo code two-way for 30% off. Again, chefiq.com, promo code two-way, 30% off. Wendy lives in the beautiful land of Minnesota that President Trump loves so much he talks about regularly. Wendy, thanks for being here. Happy holidays to you on mute. You've done that. Tell everybody what's on your mind for Katy.
Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the extent of the fraud in Minnesota. We've known a lot about it around here for a long time. It's just kind of hit the national news lately. I know a lot of people across the country are aware of this Feeding the Future fraud, the COVID fraud. There was 250 million of the 70 some people that have been arrested for that. Indicted, over 50 have been convicted so far, which is 100% of the people that were indicted. But it's not just the Minnesota taxpayers that are being defrauded, it's the whole country's taxpayers, because some of this is Medicaid, federal taxpayers and so on. My daughter's politician, her friend is a senator at the state of Minnesota, and he just told her a couple weeks ago that they're just beginning to scratch the surface. They think they already know of over 4 billion in fraud through different programs and think it can go as high as 10 billion. Just an example is they have all these phony NGOs that were the licenses were slammed through by the current Walz administration, expedited, people getting these licenses. And there's one as an example that's Autistic Therapy Center. That's been hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud. 40% of the people in that community have 40% of the children are claiming to be autistic, which of course is throwing off the Robert Kennedy Jr.'s numbers, of course, but they were supposedly treating autistic kids, except nobody ever went in and out of there. They were paying families up to $1,500 a month to claim that their kids are getting the services. We've got we had a young man that was found dead.
Wendy, may I ask you a question? I'm sorry, just curious. How much are people in Minnesota talking about this? Is this a big topic of conversation?
It's a huge topic. Huge topic, especially with Walz running again.
Yeah, and how do you personally feel about what the president's saying about the Somali community?
Well, I don't, there's so many things the president says that I don't like. And yes, I voted for him 3 times, but the way he says things bothers me, for all the same reasons Sue talked about it and you talked about it and that kind of thing. But when you live here and you see the influence of this certain set of immigrants, there's so much negativity from the treatment of the female teachers in the school by the students to how you get treated when you're in the mall. It's a whole different culture that has a lot of negative effects, one of which is the multi-billion-dollar frauds.
Yeah. What would you say to a Somali American teen who said to you, "I feel really hurt by what the president's saying"?
I'd have to think about it for a second, but it depends on who the Somali teen is. I'll be honest with you, Mark. I'll be frank with you. If it's one of the Somali teen boys that's screaming at their female teachers that they don't have to listen to them, we have teachers quitting in some of these schools. They can't take it anymore. The verbal abuse, it's the cultural thing about women aren't important, women don't know anything. It comes out in many, many different ways. So if it was one of those kids, I'd tell him to sit down and shut up.
Yeah, all right.
But
Hold on,
if it was somebody, a different
Yeah.
situation, I would be extremely compassionate.
Yeah. Wendy, who's your congressperson?
My congressperson to
The U.S. Congress.
National, the Fed,
Yeah.
Tom Emmer.
Tom Emmer. All right. Well, here's a different member of the delegation, Ilhan Omar, moments ago on CNN, answering basically the same question I asked you, which is, how does she feel about the president's rhetoric towards the Somali community? Here she is just moments ago.
Somali immigrants, in general, you in particular have been the target of his attacks for a long time. What's your response?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked because we know that the president oftentimes resorts to very bigoted, xenophobic, Islamophobic, racist rhetoric when he is trying to scapegoat and deflect from the actual failures that he has himself. We know that this administration has not fulfilled the majority of the promises that they've made, whether it is bringing costs down, whether it is the tariffs that are decimating businesses in the United States, whether it is the possible war crimes that his defense secretary is committing. And so to me, it is important for us, one, to remind folks that we are Americans. We're not going anywhere, and we will continue to be in this country. And two, that Minnesotans are resilient, and we will continue to thrive.
She also said in the interview that whenever the president attacks her, she gets death threats. And I'll just say again, I don't read the chat, but I glance at it. I'm not minimizing the fraud. I'm not minimizing how unhappy some people in Minnesota are about some of the activities of the Somali American community. Not minimizing those things at all. What I'm saying is an innocent teen who's got no connection to any of this, whose ancestors were in Somalia, maybe was born there, maybe was born here, is looking at the president of the United States, painting with the broadest brush imaginable, a paintbrush as long as my forearm, saying something about the whole community. And I'm not someone who fly-specks the president rhetoric. When he said people coming from Mexico, they're sending their rapists, they're sending their whatever he said, I wasn't offended by that. If you listen to specifically what he said, he wasn't painting with that broad a brush. But here he really is painting with a very broad brush. And I find it again. I'm just as a parent, I find it a little bit troubling. Wendy, we got to go. I apologize, but grateful to you for sharing. Sneak in one more sponsor and then one more question or comment. And this is from our friends at CB Distillery. Another 25% discount available to you at cbdistillery.com. The holidays can be a hectic time with a lot of family drama and stress, last-minute shopping, maybe some late nights. Here's an opportunity to use a product used by over 2 million people to be a little bit more relaxed, to share the ultimate holiday survival plan with you. CBD from CB Distillery. Everything you need to be merry and bright is here. CBD for better sleep, for pain relief, for holiday calm. Clean ingredients, premium quality, no fillers, nothing artificial, just natural CBD. As I said, over 2 million customers, 100% money back guarantee on all their products. It's a gift you can feel good about giving right now. Save 25% off All things on the website, cbdistillery.com. Enter the promo code 2way for 25% off. That's TWAY, cbdistillery.com, promo code 2way. Thank you for your attention to that matter. Here's Dan. Dan, not a big fan of the president's rhetoric about pretty much anything. What's on your mind, sir? You're good.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Mark. Yeah, just piggybacking on that topic. I mean, he started his political life with birtherism. The clip you played, he called him Barack Hussein Obama. These comments with the Somali. At what point? I mean, when is the press going to do a better job? Politicians. I mean, he's a racist. Like, he clearly is a racist and a xenophobe. And if we don't call that out, I just don't understand at what point do we let this continue going on.
Okay. Katie, thoughts on that dilemma that a lot of people on the left feel?
Yeah. And it's interesting a bit on the Somalia story too, how Homeland Security keeps saying, well, we don't focus on particular groups. We apply to everyone, and then you also get these posts at the same time. I think that, I mean, if you look at, I suppose, as, you know, the groups that Donald Trump, I always find it interesting looking at who's being offered asylum. So it's the white Afrikaners from South Africa. It's also the Christian Nigerians who tend not to be white. But then it's also, we hear people in Britain who aren't allowed to send the tweets they want could also be the next to offer it. So there's a certain sway when it comes to who they want in the country and who they really don't. I would say on Somalia, and obviously, you know, we'll never want to use, you know, I think people are always looking for a reason to dismiss a journalist for being too biased one way or another, and therefore it's this tightrope you have to walk. But I think on Somalia, I think what you can say is some cultures are harder to integrate into countries like America and the UK than others. And in the UK, we have seen often Somalia crime, sure, but also just in terms of young men at school, that often the ones, Caribbeans and Somalians who come to the country struggle the most. They don't get the support. So therefore it's bad when they hear these things, but you almost have to put more work to make this work. And obviously this has the opposite effect, but also there is a reason that I think Donald Trump would perhaps be more easy with, you know, shared values of an Irishman than some Somali coming here with a very different perspective on things.
Yeah. Dan, thank you. Grateful to you and I appreciate always the passion you bring this. Katie, how long have you been here in the States?
I'm about to hit 6 months.
6 months. What's the question you get most often from your friends in the UK about what it's like to live here?
They tend to just be like, is it mad?
Yeah.
But I think it's because I specifically live in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. So they just want to know if in general it's mad to live here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they want to know how big the portion sizes are.
I swear to God, Katie, I was about to say that. I
Yeah.
swear to God, I was going to say that because everybody in Europe always comments on that. It's like, that's
Oh, yeah,
food,
and they also-
that's food for three you've just served me.
Exactly. And they also want to know if it's true that Americans actually like British accents, because we've all told ourselves this is a truth. And
Yeah.
therefore, you know, if you've seen Love Actually, you think that's maybe how you find a romantic partner or find a career.
Third reference to Love Actually in my life today, believe it or not. Comes up all the time. I consider it one of the greatest modern films. One of the greatest modern films. All right. Katie, love having you on. Katie, you familiar with our friend Bridget Fedesi? You know Bridget? Bridget hosts the show right coming up at 7 o'clock. Here's a bit of a preview of Bridget's Real America coming up in a moment.
I didn't pull that.
Oh, never mind. Well, anyway, Bridget's coming up in a moment. No preview for you. You'll have to watch the real thing. 7 o'clock Eastern time right here on Two Way. Real America with Bridget coming up right here. And I'll be on tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time on the morning meeting. Two great new guest co-hosts. You'll have to tune in to see who's joining me. But we'll have all the coverage of all the day's news. And Spidey sense and a little reporting says you want to watch tomorrow's show based on the news that may well break in the next 10 hours. Grateful to Katie, as always, for coming on, sharing her international flair and perspective with us. Katie, thank you. Great to see you. And thank you all for being part of the Two Way community. I'll see you in 10 hours and then in 23 hours right back here for Two Way Tonight. Thank you for being part of it, and we'll see you soon. Have a great evening.